Welcome to the T&T Honda podcast. Whether you're buying a new or used vehicle, servicing and maintaining your current vehicle, or following the latest trends in the auto industry, T&T Honda is steering you straight. Thanks for listening, and let's get on with the show. Today on the T&T Honda podcast, we are talking about how to buy a new car. Navroz, what are the steps that people need to take?
I think before somebody can get to features and stuff like that, they really have to think about the use of the vehicle. So what is going to be the day-to-day drive on this thing? Is it to carry the family around? Is it to go on road trips? Is it to go to the mountains on the weekend? Do you carry a lot of stuff? Do you carry a lot of people? So that kind of gives you an idea of what body style of vehicle you'll be looking for. So is that a sedan? Is it an SUV? Is it a van? Is it a truck? Now, most people, I would suspect, kind of have an idea of what they want to get into. But in my mind, that would be the very first step to make sure that the body style of the vehicle actually matches the primary need. I have seen in the past, unfortunately, people who get so taken by a particular type of car, and then they end up taking it home and it's not quite what they had expected from a usability standpoint, which is very, very unfortunate because this is a large purchase. So we want to make sure that we're doing it logically and intelligently. Vehicles are also an emotional decision, but we got to be smart about it as well. So that would be where I would start my research, is on the body style to meet the needs of the family of that person.
What would be the next step once you've made that decision? Would it be test drive time?
I think test drive comes a little bit later. Now that you've got, let's use an example. A popular body style these days is SUVs.
Right.
Okay. So let's say a customer is looking for a sport utility vehicle. Now, what kind of sport utility vehicle? Small, medium, large, extra large, right? They come in all flavors and sizes. And with that also comes all sorts of different budgets. Right. You can get a $30,000 SUV. You can get a $300,000 SUV. Where does that fall within the realm of reality for that person in their finances and whatnot? So really, they have to shortlist it down, in my mind, to 2 or 3 different types of vehicles. And then at that point, you could consider going on a test drive. So there's so much information available online these days that, in my mind, that's a great place to start doing your research and start narrowing down that field. But eventually, you do want to make sure you go for that test drive. It's very, very important.
How much time on average do people spend researching the vehicles online before they come in and buy? Because I, as an example, am a completely emotional buyer. I walked in, I drove the car, and then I bought it, which was the most foolish thing I've ever done. And I regret that to this very day. I wish we'd had this conversation long before. But how much time do you recommend people should spend doing the research before they go and start getting emotional on the lot?
So it's hard to put an exact time frame per individual. But looking at industry studies, I've seen studies that show most people will spend anywhere from 12 hours up to 30, 40, 50 hours researching a particular vehicle online, right? Which makes perfect sense, because depending on where you are in that, in the field of trying to figure out what you want, sometimes it's, okay, do I need to figure out body style? Do I need to figure out budget? Do I need to figure this out? Other times it's, okay, yeah, I want to stick with a Honda, for example. So which Honda do I want? So it really depends on where they start in their shopping experience. But there's a significant amount of time that happens before we ever see them in the dealership, which I think is good.
Yes.
We should definitely do that. You know, nowadays it's so easy to do research and reviews and stuff like that. YouTube is a wonderful place to look.
Right.
Just realize, though, that not everything you see on YouTube is 100% factual. So I would definitely steer them to things like Car and Driver, the actual manufacturer videos, the stuff that is actual factual, not necessarily people's opinions. Yes, opinions are good and valuable, but also you want to know the facts behind the particular purchase that you're looking at.
I'm literally guiding this podcast in the way that I would shop for a car. I'm like, when can we test drive? When can we test
absolutely.
drive?
And you know what? That is great because like we talked about, the test drive is a very, very crucial part of this. So let me give you a quick analogy. You may have this pair of shoes that you're looking at, Emma, right, that are gorgeous. But once you put them on, they don't feel comfortable. Right? They might look good, but they don't feel good. And that's where the test drive comes in with the vehicle. You may have done all your research, looking at all the specifications, all the numbers look good, all the reviews look good, but for whatever reason, it doesn't suit you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the test drive really comes in. So I'd highly, highly, highly encourage people to do the actual test drive and do it in a fashion to experience all types of conditions.
Right.
So a lot of times, a test drive is simply going around the block, and any new vehicle, when you're going around the block, is going to feel amazing compared to what you're driving.
Yes.
Right? That doesn't really tell you much. So what I would encourage people to do is try and get the vehicle on the roads that they would drive on a daily basis if possible.
Mm-hmm.
If not, and yeah, dealerships will have some restrictions about, maybe time, how much time a vehicle can be on a test drive or something like that. But at least try and get it in a city street. Try and get it on a little bit of a highway. Try and get it on some curvy roads, some ugly roads that are bumpy and lumpy, right? Just to feel the handling capabilities of the vehicle, see if it's comfortable for them. Do they really see themselves fitting into that vehicle, and does the vehicle fit into what their needs are?
Exactly. And the climate too. I had a friend who got completely swayed by the sporty and shiny and ended up with a convertible Mustang, which is perfect for Calgary driving in the winter time.
Right, for those 2.5 days that we have awesome weather, yes. Because we have a fairly hefty winter, that does factor into a lot of people's buying decisions. And that's why I believe, especially in Calgary and in the prairies, SUVs and trucks have become so popular because there's that sense and that perception that they're better.
Right.
Based on our climate.
They also feel a lot safer too in the winter, I feel, driving along in snow.
And I think we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to talking about winter tires and stuff like that. For a lot of people with SUV comes all-wheel drive capability or four-wheel drive capability. A lot of people think that if they have that, I've got a truck or an SUV with all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, they're invincible.
Right.
They're not.
Yeah.
Right? The thing with that is, remember, it is not a safety feature. It's a performance feature. It allows you to get going.
Right.
Okay? So, yes, it's important, okay, to have that traction and so on. However, it is not designed to give you full ultimate power on winter roads, which a lot of people think, oh, if I get an SUV, I'm going to be great.
Yeah.
I'll be moving by all the people who are stuck on the side of the road. Yeah, kind of, but not.
Right.
So be wary.
Test drives, they're free, right?
Yes. If anybody is charging you for a test drive, walk away. There should never be a charge for a test drive. Obviously, though, from the dealership standpoint, we're not just going to flip the keys over to somebody who just walked in.
Right.
We kind of need to get to know that person, who you are, what the idea is. So there will be some questioning, let's call it, or some fact finding.
Right.
And some of that might be, hey, can I see your driver's license? Because we want to know that you are able and legal to drive.
Right.
Some dealerships will allow you to go on your own. Others will have a representative from the dealership with you. So it very much depends on their own policies as well as their insurance policies, because that plays a role in it as well. Because should something happen, of course, the dealership is responsible ultimately. There's usually some paperwork that you sign saying that you understand that you're taking out somebody else's property and you're responsible for any damages you cause. If you get a speeding ticket or whatever, you're responsible for that. Those kinds of basic things. So yeah, that's normal.
What's the policy at T&T Honda right now? Do you have people going out on the test drives? I suppose now is a bit of a strange time anyways for people in the car together.
So our normal policy with our insurance company is that we do require a representative in the vehicle. However, because of COVID and social distancing and so on, we've had them make amendments on our policy. So we are allowing people to test drive on their own. We are setting some time frame parameters around it, so they're not gone for like 18 hours. However, we're being flexible based on the current circumstances.
I kind of like the idea of having the representative, because then you can ask all these questions as you're experiencing the different things while you're driving the vehicle.
And that's really why we have a rep in the car, aside from the insurance aspect of things. And the training that we give our salespeople and our product advisors is basically when the customer is experiencing the vehicle, you sit quietly in the back seat, let them experience the car, because you don't want to be yammering on about, oh, how'd that feel? How was that? It's basically that, a few short minutes that the customer has to really experience the car. So we want to let them do that. And then, of course, if they have a question, then you're there to respond to it. But otherwise, it's the customer's time with the vehicle, and you just sit there quietly and let them do their thing.
So what should you be looking for when you're on your test drive?
So first of all, comfort. If you're going to be in that vehicle for any length of time, I've had situations in the past where people have actually traded out of a particular car because it simply was not comfortable for them. And that comfort can take various different forms. It's getting into the vehicle, getting out of the vehicle. If it's too high or too low, especially with elderly people or people with medical issues, sometimes it's better or easier if the car is higher or lower. So that forms part of the purchase decision as well. So you want to make sure that it's comfortable from that aspect. Secondly, that the seats, especially for the driver, is comfortable if you're going to be out there for a long time. There's many, many people out there who have sensitive backs or have back troubles and so on. So you want to make sure that there is enough adjustability in the seats for you to be comfortable. And also driving position. So you want enough adjustability in the seat itself to be able to go forward, backward, up, down, whatever the case is, to give you that proper, I'm holding the steering wheel, I'm sitting properly with my back on the back of the seat, as well as I'm able to reach the pedals. So that symmetry has to be there. So all of these things that we kind of maybe overlook, but are very, very important for the long run.
Anything else kind of technically that you would want to look for in a test drive?
I would want to put a vehicle through its paces, like not drive like a crazy person, but, give it a little bit of juice. Take it on a little twisty turny to see how it handles. Because let's say, for example, you're going down the road and all of a sudden somebody stops in front of you suddenly and you have to veer off. What does that feel like in the vehicle? Can you keep control over it, or do you just not, right? So all of these kinds of things need to be in play. Also, with all of the new advanced safety features in the vehicles, for people who are coming out of older cars, they don't have that comfort level with these new features. The car actually gives you a lot of feedback. Maybe the steering wheel will shake on you and you'll be surprised as to why that's happening. But it's telling you, hey, you're going out of your lane, get back in your lane. So all these kinds of things need to be experienced rather than just seeing them or knowing about them. You need to experience them.
Totally. And just to remind everyone, we're talking about buying a new car. We are going to have another podcast about buying used cars, which I'm sure there's a lot more factors to look for when you're buying a used vehicle.
Yes. Now, some of the stuff we're talking about here definitely applies to a used car, but there's certain specific things when it comes to a used car that are specific to a used vehicle purchase that we'll talk about.
So what's the process to buy the vehicle? So you've had your wonderful test drive, you're in love with the vehicle, you're making an emotional decision like I would, like, yes, let's do this. What's the process to make the purchase?
In my mind, you've already done a little bit of it when you've done your online research. You've kind of already chosen those 2 or 3 cars that will work for you with regards to budget, with regards to body style and usage and so on. So a lot of that is done. Now it's time to get to the nitty gritty. So once you've done your test drive and it's like, okay, in my mind, the next logical question would be how much, right? So now this is the car for me. These are the features I want. How much is it going to be? Then we talk about, okay, how are you going to pay for it? Is it going to be an outright purchase where you're going to bring in cash or a certified check? Is it something that you need help making payments on? If that's the case, what are the different options around that? There's, of course, finance packages. There's lease packages. There's so many different variables there that we really have to sit down with the customer and give them all sorts of options. And that's what we try and do, is give them all the options that are available on the table, because we don't know somebody's personal situation as well as they do, right? So our job is to give them all the options, give them the education, and then they can decide what they feel is right for them.
Once the decision's been made on the sale and everything's gone through, what's the average turnaround time? Do most people get to drive the car straight off the lot, or do you wait a lot of times for delivery?
So the general process is, okay, once an agreement is reached and it's like, okay, I want to buy this car, there's certain bits of paperwork that we have to produce, the bill of sale, so on and so forth. And in most cases, there is some amount of financing that is required. Or even if it's making arrangements to pay by certified check, they will go in and see one of our finance managers. The finance managers are there to basically put all the pieces together. So they're kind of the hub where everything goes in. So the salesperson, the sales manager, the customer, they're all communicating with the finance manager, and they're the ones who, number one, arrange to prepare the vehicle. So they'll talk to the service and parts department and say, okay, here's Emma. She's buying this brand new CRV and she wants to get this, this, and this put on the vehicle. Let's get that done for her. How quickly can we get it done? and the finance managers arrange a time and a date of pickup. At the same time, if there is an approval to be worked on, they'll collect the customer's information, work with the various different lending institutions we have to get that taken care of as well. They'll also give the customer some homework because there is some stuff that the customer needs to do, namely arranging insurance, making sure they have a void check. If there is a down payment or the balance of the cash that needs to be paid, they'll need to go and make arrangements for that, license plates and so on. So basically we all are doing our little bits, and then we get back together again in a couple, 3 days and go through the final bits of paperwork. And that's when the customer picks up the vehicle. Once we're done with the paperwork, we have a delivery specialist on staff, and that person is tasked with the privilege of going through the vehicle one more time before the customer actually drives the car home, make sure that they're comfortable with everything, do all the final bits of paperwork with regards to what we've done with our pre-delivery inspection on the vehicle, make sure all the accessories are on the way the customer expected, explain the maintenance schedule to them and so on, and then let them go.
Fantastic. Now, this might be something for another episode, but also when buying a new car, you have options, I'm assuming, to kind of customize your colors or your trim level and all of those elements. Is that something that's quite common with people, where they'll be like, I love this car, I've test driven it, it's great, but can we do X, Y, Z? So
that is actually part and parcel of before we get in to see the finance manager typically. Once we decide that, this is the car for you and this is the trim level we're looking at, we will actually ask the customers, how would you like to personalize the vehicles? There's certain things that a lot of people want to have on their cars, just from a protection standpoint, things like some kind of a paint protection film. In Calgary, they're notorious for putting all of these rocks on the road in the winter, good for traction, horrible for rock chips on the front end of the car. So you want to protect that vehicle. So we do offer these kinds of things. Another very popular accessory is all-weather mats. So all of the vehicles come with a set of carpet mats from the factory, but a lot of people also want to get a set of rubber mats. So that's a very popular accessory. Remote starters are popular accessories. There's other things like roof racks or side step bars or spoilers or tint. So there's lots of different things, and every vehicle has a list of different accessories that are available from factory. And we would generally go through that list with the customer and say, okay, are any of these things that you would like to see on your vehicle? And then we will price it out for them based on how they want to pay for it. And if they decide to go ahead with it, then of course, before they pick up the vehicle, we'll have all of those things installed.
So what would you recommend once people have done their research and they've got their heart set on a Honda? How can they reach out to you? What's the best way to set up a time to come and test drive their vehicle?
So they could start online and submit a request that way, just phone in, whatever works for them. We have a chat function available on our website as well. Any way that they want to reach out to us, we're here. And that is, I would say, the funnest part of the job for us is to take people out on test drives, because that's when we get to see the big smiles on people's faces and the wow factor. That makes it super fun for all of us. So we welcome test drives. That's what we're here for. That's our jobs. So don't feel shy about requesting a test drive or 2 or 3.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the T&T Honda podcast. We'll be back with lots more for you very soon. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to like, share, and of course subscribe to keep up to date with everything that's going on. In the meantime, check out tnthonda.com and we'll be back with another episode very soon.
'Cause T&T Honda, steering you straight.